Good morning and welcome to Who Am I? I was just musing to myself this morning in my laboratory, and I was coming up with I was coming up with interesting things. So I thought maybe I should record this. I record a lot of stuff here in my studio. I record a lot of the conversations that go through this little office. What is the Who Am I show? And it's funny, I turned the Who Am I show on and automatically I lose what it was I was talking about because now instead of just talking to myself and musing about the nature of reality, I've invited you in. And now, how do I get it to flow back the other way? Grandma, this is a show that discusses the very nature of reality and our own nature. Who am I? And things like source energy, the laws of the universe, how to put all of this stuff together. It's going to come together with things like human psychology and history, the history of us all, even anthropology, genetics, mathematics, geometry, physics, all manner of disciplines pulled under one simple umbrella. And we pull, we try to head straight to the interesting part, which is who am I in all of this? And more than that, the implication is then going to lead to who are we? Who are we as humanity, as life itself? You know, it leads to all that, and we're going to try to stay cheerful about the whole thing, although we are going to mention, some of our problems as humanity, but we'll sketch through them really briefly. We are absolutely not focusing on problems. We're just going to tip the hat and give a nod to the fact that yes, indeed, we do have problems. Now, superseded by our problems by far, I believe, is the nature of a structure, a matrix, the universe itself around us that is quite capable of helping us um, help ourselves get out of this problem. Quote unquote problem. What problem? We live in a glorious, glorious universe. However, I'll tell you what the problem is. We use more than a planet's worth of uh, renewable supplies to get us from day to day. Right now, the way we are using and abusing our planet, we are munching through it. Like it's all the stuff in the refrigerator, but the refrigerator's going to be empty here if we don't understand a few things like who we are and how this works and how to align ourselves with our inner beings, each of us individually with our inner beings. And then actually, that's naturally going to have collectively all of our inner beings working because when you when you tag into your own inner being, you have already tagged into the rest of the group. So you don't, from that point, you don't have to think. You don't have to know everything. That's what I'm saying. Your physical mind does not have to, in its thinking self, know everything. Just stay hooked up with your inner being, and she will playfully lead you to the steps that harmoniously um, uh, blend with the rest of the field around you in a blessed way, as opposed to in a chaotic way or in a dysfunctional way. It will be a highly functional way. This is how we make it to functionality. Highly functional um, humanity across the freaking globe, operating both individually and throughout our collective systems, because generally we have come to understand who we are. Who we are is a collective being. We are a superorganism. We just are. You don't have to argue about it. As a matter of fact, arguing about it really only pretends to throw it into question, because it really isn't in question. We are a superorganism, and we behave in collective ways as well as individual ways. And what do I mean by that? The collective ways that we operate are expressed in our systems, in our collective systems. What systems do you ask? Systems like our communication systems, our transportation systems, our economic systems, our medical care systems. Do you get it? The systems, the systems, the systems. There should be systems across the board, collectively taking us all generally to where we all generally want to be. There is a place where we agree. There absolutely is a fundamental, really important, really interesting, powerful place where all of us agree. Now, I can't tell you that I know exactly where that is. I do know that in this um, study that we're undergoing here in the Who Am I show. I keep thinking I'm going to do it like a Who Am I show. I will probably do it more like a seminar, like a class. Like, join in. Come on, get on, come on in. The water's fine. And we're going to be talking about this for a while. And we're going to be covering a whole lot of topics. And at the end of it, we're going to weave together this understanding of who we are and how to move forward, both from wherever you are individually, you're in your highly individual standpoint, and then collectively, things are going to start coming into view for how this works, both individually and collectively, and how at the end of all of this process, all of us get everything we want, everything we want. But we've got to, it's going to end up being a project of organization. But what is going to happen is we're going to start understanding the system, and then we are going to allow the great system, which some would call God. So we're going to allow God to organize us, but we're going to allow real God to organize us, not somebody's religion to organize us. It's not that. Although everyone is going to start seeing the relationship between what's really happening and what their religion was trying to tell them about something. And they're going to go, oh, yeah, okay, I see. I see the relationship. That was kind of a constricted view. This is the actual real view, the real view of allness, of total allowing, of complete non resistance, of absolutely trusting in this great flowing energy field that is matrixing us all together. We are flowing, going and flowing one with another, whether we realize it or not. And the way to approach all of this is vibrationally, not physically. So I'm not going to start, and we're not talking about the thought police either. More like the vibration police, but not really the police, more like the vibration hall monitor. you know, we're not talking police. We're talking hall monitor, just somebody to help us out, keep us flowing in the right direction, help us understand who we are so that we understand what we all want. We all want things like the we want the luxury of every single individual to be able to be out for themselves to the highest level that they can imagine, you know, and without restriction, and have the full, freedom of choice. Um, well, in actual fact, we do all have this. And I'll tell you where our point of choice is. Our point of choice is at a different place than you think it ought to be. We don't necessarily, at all times, physically have full freedom to do every physical thing that we want to do. That is true. We don't always have that physical. What we do always have the physical choice of is lining up our two selves or not. That's the one thing that we always have the choice of, and no one can stop us from doing this too because it's an inside job. No, nobody from the outside can stop you from making this link between you and yourself. Now, where does that link get you? That's the question you might ask. Is so what? So what? I can link myself to myself. What the hell does that matter? What does it mean? Well, it means everything because, first of all, you need to understand that your actual nature, your actual construction, what you are, your component parts are. That's how come I call the show the Who Am I show, because what we're talking about is our very nature. And who you are is a flow of data and information. And you are flowing this data and information at two distinct scales. Now, there might be more, both smaller and larger, but for our intents and purposes, you are flowing at two distinct scales. And one of those flows of energy and information is coming to you from your specific individual smaller self. I am a mote of dust in the mighty attic of the universe, or whatever kind of analogy you want to. You're dust in the wind, or your individual, specific, insignificant self. 1 in 8 billion, whatever you want. But you are that, and you are also the whole flow. You're tagged into all the information. But actually, you're probably more flows than that. You're probably your specific self, and then you are at the humanity level self, and then at the biological, the whole biofield of Mother Gaia. Then actually, you're probably at the level of the biofield of Mother Gaia, and then perhaps she has a consciousness where she is aware of herself. She's starting to feel she's getting a rash. We're giving her a fever. She's starting to get the mange in places because we're not taking care of, we are not understanding this complexity of flows of data and information that we all are, and how to organize. The way you organize is fundamentally first understand fundamentally what organization is. Because now this sounds crazy that I would be, getting as hyper simplistic as this, but this is actually the very foundation of all things. It actually is born more in neutrality than it is in, judgment of good and bad. The judgment of good and bad kind of comes from the human mind, the human uh, binary set of minds where one is sees the ideal and is the ideal, and the other one is trying to keep up. And depending on how it is confronting the perspective, it can really delineate these two, and then you stand in judgment of that. Oh, this physical life. Look at how, when I see the ideal in my mind, and then I go forth and try to manifest it or perpetrate it or bring it into being. How less perfect what I come up with is from that ideal that I was spinning in my mind. You might focus that way, or you may just, actually, there's so many ways to focus. Who am I? And the real question is, how do we get out of whatever pickle someone might think we're in? Now, who thinks we're in which pickles? Because there's all kinds of, a lot of people are beating the drum of humanity is in this pickle or that pickle, or, we've got trouble on the border, or we've got trouble from these people, or our rights are being threatened over here in this quarter, or um, what is the physical threat that somebody's going to try to sell us today? Some problem that could happen to my body, or something that someone outside of me is trying to, and how does one make sense of any of these things? Well, I'll tell you how to make sense of it. The best way to make sense of it is hook up with your greater knowing, first of all, and then in humility, start moving in the world. And the idea, what you're really, let's see if I can, I'm going to go into new territory here as I'm going to explore a possibility of what the object of the exercise might possibly be. Well, the total object of the exercise for humanity is sustainability. We have not attained sustainability, not in any way, shape, or form. Right now, we don't have the way we live on this planet right now, we don't have enough resources to supply the needs of 8 billion people, or 7 billion, or 7.5 billion, or 7.75 billion, or 9.5, or whatever we're heading to, because our population is growing. It is growing. We are getting more and more and more, and the way we are consuming goods and consuming energy, the way we use energy, we're not going to make it very far. We're digging ourselves a really big hole where the burning of fossil fuel is like Gaia is smoking, and she's got lung cancer, and she's starting to cough, and we're starting to experience less than happy things in parts of the world. It's getting quite grim, and we're struggling for resources, and those who hold the energy resources are the ones who have all the power in this world. And so they, of course, want to keep the systems exactly the way they are. But I'm going to tell you that we have a way out of this. We really do. I know we do, conceptually speaking, philosophically speaking, and not just conceptually and philosophically, but in physics, in reality, there is a physical way out of this, and that is we need to understand source energy so that we can plug our technologies into that, uh, instead of burning fossil fuel the way that we do. And we need to do this for a number of reasons, and it's urgent. Now, a lot of people don't want to feel the urgency of that. They want to just la-di-da. Now, I also want to feel the la-di-da, but at some point I would like to pass this wave out to the field because it is urgent. We need to get off of fossil fuel. We need to stop smoking. Mother Gaia needs to stop smoking. It's a bad habit, and it's causing some terrible things. It causes centralized power. Centralized energy creates centralized power. And the beauty The magical, miraculous beauty of source energy is that there's no particular location where where it is. It's everywhere. There's no one centralized location where it is. It is everywhere. The center is everywhere. And the reason that the center is everywhere is because no matter where you are, there's no physical edge in the way that we think of as physical edges, because the whole thing is looking at itself. So there's no place at the edge where past that it looks like an edge because out there no one is looking at it. If you aren't at the place where uh, that's actually really interesting. I can see that, although I can also see that I'm not ready to say that quite clearly. But that's why you can't see the edge of the universe. Every time you go to what you think is the edge and look, there's always something there because it's all the universe looking at itself. And so when you peer somewhere, you would never look into nothingness because there isn't anywhere where it just doesn't work that way. Okay. So, back to our binary nature. Um, I leave so many ideas just thrown in the road on the behind me as I forge forward, and then I'm like, oh man, how many things did I leave unfleshed out? You know, in my discussion of who we are and how this works. Mm. Our binary nature, our we are one, our how the energy works, how the biofield, no, how the energy field works. The reason that there is no center, no center other than where you are, is because the source of source energy is really the multitudinous quantity of Plancks across the multiverse touching one another and exchanging their information at the Planck scale. And oh man, the more I ponder this, the more I can actually see what he's saying. When you peer into the small, you're actually looking into the large. You look peer into the small, and all you have to do is magnify it by the scale of the large, and that's what you've got. So the way the universe is exchanging all of its information across the universe at the turn of a Planck is go from it doesn't have to travel from one end of the universe to the other. It only has to it does it all within the Planck field of a proton. And you can see how that, it's all touching, it's all one Planck turns and all the information is exchanged. Ah, so interesting. Who are we? And I don't want to get too esoteric into anything really. I want to stay in the general and just paint this whole general picture of who we are and what's going on. What's the meaning of our lives? What's the object of the exercise? The object of the exercise is sustainability. And I would go farther than that. Joyful sustainability. I think actually we have a sweeter target that is so possible, but you have to have a general population that understands generally what the general setup is and starts getting a sense of how much fun it would be to live in a society that operated this way, especially if you could do it within any kind of memory of a society that operates as dysfunctionally as ours does. How sweet would that moment be? What am I talking about? I'm talking about synchronicity. Do you understand what synchronicity, what popping on synchronicity, impulsing on our impulses, what that would look like without everybody so frick sweating the small shit all the time? People should always be not sweating any small shit, no small shit. No longer will we sweat the small shit. And you know how we get to that? First of all, we have to embrace all of our fellow mankind. I don't care what color they are. I don't care what gender they call themselves. I don't care what hideous acts they have committed. I mean, I do. And so I absolutely value sanctuary and peace. And I would locate myself in a position where I myself am have found a safe eddy from the cacophonous turmoil going on out there. The blender is in full chaotic mode out there on the street. It is, but I don't rendezvous with it. I don't look for it. I don't go and joyfully play with it or whatever. I understand what it is. It is us in chaos. Think of the order. Um, I said that it was fundamentally all about order. Let's fundamentally take it back to the concepts of chaos and coherence. Let's think of coherence as being divine order. And what is divine order? Divine order is where all beings, so you see this divine order out in a naturescape. In an untouched wilderness, you can see this divine order. And what it is composed of is absolutely every single individual out there, out for themselves, but never, ever, ever against the field around them. So they're always out for themselves individually, but never, ever, ever in disorder against the biofield in which they are contained. That's kind of what the rule is there. Now, human beings not really understanding who we are or how this works, in expediency, we have sometimes, destroyed the field. We have slaughtered the ecosystem en masse, or declared absolute war against a species or whatever. We do it in a larger context as opposed to in small ways. We do this without understanding the threads of life that we're working with. And now in places we have been at times clumsily, we, try to do things, but in our heavy hand, we perhaps introduce a species to a continent that can't deal with it. And the next thing you know, rabbits have taken over Australia or, whatever. The object of the exercise is not in any given moment to materially be safe or cling to any kind of particular order in safety in the moment. The long term object of the exercise, first of all, is to know who we are. And then, secondly, use our knowledge of who we are to create everything that we prefer. Create everything we prefer, allow everything that we prefer, co create and allow, co-allow and co-create, or I don't know. You got to add more because it's not us. We're not doing this. And us trying so hard to do it on our own is what the problem is. We need to really, really understand that every single one of us is two selves. And collectively, all of us have a humanity aspect of ourself that we all are. There is a being that we are all a part of. We all hold membership to, no matter what, literally, no matter what. Whether they are the heinous, hated, or loved, heinous, loved. You could say that Kim Jong Un is the heinous but loved leader of North Korea. Now, he might be loved because of propaganda and misinformation and misdirection and misorganization and a misdirection of, smoke and mirrors and momentum. And there's all kinds of reasons why. He's also standing there as a visual aid to illustrate concepts about who we are and how this works and how you just can't fight City Hall. You can't fight City Hall. You fight City Hall and you end up with monstrosities. What you have to do is make peace with City Hall and get City Hall to start flowing in your direction. You don't fight it. You don't resist it. You don't hate it. You don't subtract it. You don't, try to subdue it or whatever. It's not us against them. And whenever you play the big game as though it's an us against them, then the whole thing devolves into what had always devolves into up to this point. But I think there's a real chance that through higher awareness, through up-leveling in consciousness, through more and more people coming to understand these greater concepts, I think that we might get to a place where we can get past war and we get ultimately to that sweet spot, that peace on earth, goodwill towards men on planet Earth, where we are moving, where our society is moving in synchronicity, not bothered by this pathological need at all times to vilify, to track down the culprits, make sure they get punished, in order, in some mistaken notion that in doing so, that is what's going to keep us safe from our own nature. That's what's going to keep us safe from this this threat of autocracy, this authoritarian psychosis coming down the barrel, looking down the barrel at us. That's what's going to keep us safe, or this is what's going to keep us safe, or that, the Democrats think that what's going to keep us safe from this vibrational presence of authoritarian psychosis is if we bring him to justice for his heinous crimes and throw him in prison so that good people can be elected president or some nonsense like that. Do you know how that sets up the dark side for their when they start throwing all of us into prison for the same reason? You can't do that. It is not us against them. It's not even us. It's not the Democrats against the Republicans. It's not even the authoritarians against the democracy loving, whatever. It's not any of us against any of us. We are one being here on the planet, and we've got to learn how to do that. We've got to understand what our nature is, how we are designed, and how we could be so much more easygoing about this. And the more that we struggle and fuss and fight and quarrel with one another. And I realize that in some ways, in a lot of ways, some of the things that I say sound uber ultra simplistic. And to some extent, I have had to s- oversimplify certain things because I'm taking us back to fundamentals. And the fundamental that I'm going to take us back to is the fundamental of organization. And what you have to understand is at the center of every spin of organization is an intention at the center of it. And that's that intention, although it's a spirit, it is tagged in and uh, um, attached to and associated with elements and aspects of our material physical reality. Absolutely, all things are there. It's all kind of a mixture. But the spirit at the center of all intention really colors the outcome. And one of the problems that humanity has had as it struggles to do, to organize itself, to come into its own, to start communicating with itself and transporting, cells circulating around the body and have the internet is like its budding nervous system. It is its nervous system and the way that we can communicate with one another across uh, the way that this open source um, technology of this studio that I use. And then I tag into YouTube, which is another open source kind of a platform. And I can just spew and spout, whatever out into the air, out into the mist, and the universe can inspire somebody to, tag in and listen to me or whatever. And isn't it all so interesting? That's all expressions of us as a collective creature rising in the field, coming together, recognizing one another, understanding what is happening and who we are. We are two selves. We are absolutely, we are our highly individualized self. Um, and from our individual position, we get to call our shots. We get to decide what we want and what would be better. It doesn't have to be, what things do I want? What material things? What list of objects do I want to acquire and call my own? It's not even that. It's what do I want? Okay, I want things like I want my garage organized. I want my mechanical systems all around my home to be secure from disruption, so that I always have water. I always have power. Um, what else do I always need? Water and power, pretty much it, because with that power, you get um, cool and heat and communication from the outside world, you know, which at all times, somebody in the outside world is still broadcasting, is still functioning. As little winky places go down, the whole thing is still up. Now, if the United States goes cattywampus, the whole world is going to feel it. So there's no, but uh, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I actually think we're all okay. And I think that the prescription, everybody, is chill the F out. Chill out and let's look at this. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to help us see that all is well. And all we have to do is take many, 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 many of the things that we are already doing exactly the way that we are doing. That it is just fine and just tweak them. Just for working from where we are, just make it better and better and better and better. Now, now this is where we get to the place where we have to kind of agree on the way the field works to a little bit, because we have to agree that it is not appropriate or optimal to run a win-lose game. Now, you may think that you have to win to run a win-lose game because those people over there are playing a win-lose game and they're out to defeat me. They're out to defeat me. And so I have to do that in order to protect myself. It's me against them. And that, you can see how that just kind of keeps that whole system going. What we don't realize is that this universe is so agreeable, so malleable, so incredibly reflective, so feedback oriented, so powerfully co creative that although it absolutely plays like a win lose proposition when you play it like a win lose, when you play it like a win win, it also plays like a win. So you can just play it like a win win. And so what does that mean? It means now, no longer and forevermore, am I rooting for anyone to fail. I don't want anyone to fail. I don't even want President Trump to fail. I want him to fail at his schemes, perhaps to lead us to an authoritarian dictatorship. But I don't actually see that as him succeeding. When this whole thing started, he was just a fool who wanted bling, who wanted to be popular, who wanted to have a lot of pussy, who wanted to be liked. He wanted to be popular. He wanted his father to love him. There's we should not have treated him the way we treated him because we have created the monster that we have created. Hitler didn't start out the monster that he ended up being. He didn't start out as that monster. The whole field created that. And everybody's misunderstanding of what was happening and everybody in resistance, bristling against who they thought was the enemy, instead of realizing that, oh, whom I'm calling an enemy is not, he's not evil, he's ill. He's ill and he needs help. He needs love. He needs soothing. He needs to understand his own value and his own worth. And I'll tell you what, I have never been a fan of this president. And as a student of the Holocaust, I promise you, I see what y'all are afraid of. And I was terrified of this too. Back in 2016, I joined the resistance. I joined the Democratic Party officially. I went and ran for precinct chair and got it. Actually, I got it because there's all kinds of chairships that nobody cares about politics. They don't. They feel like somehow there's something I don't know, disconnected about it. It's not irrelevant and it's not um but it's disconnected somehow to what people think is their real life. What our government it is an expression of us collectively as a personality, as our nation. And then all the different nations around the world are sort of like expressions of personality. And they have leaders that can talk to one another and express the will of the larger group, you know. That's what that is. The one who's speaking for us right now, I I I don't know what to say about it. I am with people like Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert as they make fun of him. In a way, I am with them. I get it. I get it. I'm not disagreeing with you on the surface, but the problem is that the whole display, the entire display of all things, is happening because we don't know who we are. So, like I said, I joined the resistance back in 2016, and I am the kind of person who I act and I reflect, and I act and I reflect, and I'm very observant, and I try to take a farther vantage point to catch glimpses of bigger picture and all that. I just do that. And it started to occur to me that this man who shouldn't have had any traction at all, he was so running so totally against some really core things that I had grown up with, of believing that America was. He was so against certain aspects of it that it seemed like, well, what I'm getting to is that it seemed like our resistance was giving him power. That's what I'm getting at. Our act of resisting him was giving him credibility. It was giving him, it's how the energy works. You conceive of um, this us versus them structure, and then you take the one position and it invites the other position to come up in opposition across from you. It's long ago I discovered, so I realized, or I glimpsed, or I'm going to try to help you glimpse the same thing. I don't know how to use what kind of words to use, but you remember the movie Dark Knight and the whole concept of Batman. Batman, as he sees the world as evil, and he focuses out there on the evil beings that there are that need to be, whatever. He actually, that energy is what creates the Joker. It's actually very interesting. Go watch that movie again and think about that, because that's um so it's the polarization itself is our enemy, not each other. Each other, we are all trapped in the same physical experience with one another. It's the polarity of these energies that is actually the problem. And you could think of them as gods. They are like gods. They are like energies populated by, you know, cells of flesh that are either with this energy or with that energy in any given moment. Are you in your positive or are you in your negative? The negative is like a dark god. It's like Satan. It is the Satan that people talk about, but it doesn't have the source of evil quite the way quite the way religions have taught us that it is. This is actually an energy form that is created within ourselves. It is just our negative self. It's just our little angry self, not understood, and then it tries to be heard. You know, it comes out in a small negative emotion to begin with, and when not heard, it grows to a screaming tantrum. And then it starts to look like a demon, you know? But all it is concentrated negative emotion. And what is this negative emotion? It is a variance in frequency between your two minds. If your physical, specific self is taking up thoughts and concepts that are very disparate from your broader perspectives, frequencies, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel that hit right in your solar plexus. It doesn't feel good. It is negative emotion. You feel anger. You feel frightened by something or pissed off about, and if you rest over there and you're always in that, I'm just angry, I'm angry, I'm angry, I can't get my eyes off what these people are doing, and it's pissing me off because I care about my family and the trees, and look at what they're doing. They're making war, they're making fire, they're making death, I'm mad. And now I'm so they're obviously what's wrong. Throw them all in jail. Make sure that it stand back a few steps, people. Step back a bit and look at the whole picture. Look at where we have come from. Look at the laws of the universe. Look at, mm, and to this end, I see that I'm 50 minutes into the program. I'm going to go another 10 minutes or so, and then I'm going to say goodbye. And I actually think I may post this one. Part of me gets a little bit self-conscious at my ability to run all of this material stuff through a very I realize that I am not in touch with reality in a way. I'm not addressing some specifics on the ground um in quite the specific way that some people think you ought to. But it's because I think that the only way to address any of our problems, small or large, is you have to address them from a state of wholeness. And only from this state of wholeness can you see the whole picture and act correctly to benefit both yourself and others. You don't want to accidentally be playing a win lose game of any sort. You do have to win yourself. So deal yourself in. The first part of your equation is I am in this for myself. I am in this for everything I love and everything I want. And I'll tell you what I love and want. I love ease, security, abundance. I love beauty. I adore freedom. I am so free. I have I have been so blessed in my life to be so free. No one pushes back against me. The only rule is that I don't get what I want through resistance. That's the only rule. I get what I want by getting clear about what I want. That's the only rule. And from that position, I can have everything. And honestly, although it doesn't look like it, everybody is standing in that position. The only thing that's in most people's way is their own mental ability to realize how free they actually are and how all things are actually possible, and there's nothing holding anybody back. But the very first thing you need to do is link up with that aspect of yourself that is in touch with the rest of the universe. That's the important part because you are two selves. You are a macro flow and a micro flow. That micro flow of information, that's the one everybody's more familiar with. That's their specific realm and range of information. It's all the things I know. It's all the things I'm looking at. It's generally all the information my senses are bringing in. It's everything my memory, can add to the situation. It's, if I'm plugged into media, it can also that there can also be other information, coming in affecting that as I'm watching my show, fantasy or historical. you know, reenactment or whatever it is. There's that specific flow of information that you are at the micro level. And then you are also this flow of information at the macro level. Now, it makes utter and absolute sense that if you want to have dealings with the greater world, because you're president or because you're, um, uh, or it, I shouldn't have said that. We all, because you're investing in stocks, because you're going to travel around the world, because you have to vote and you have to understand what's going on in the world around you. There's every one of us has reasons for being tagged into to the bigger picture. We are a superorganism after all. We deal with international trade routes and um, global distribution systems and global transportation and communication systems where we interface one with another as we are a superorganism. We just are. And the only way that we're going to solve our problems as humanity is we are going to solve them from where our two brains can get together. The one that knows who we really are and knows what the universe is and what it's doing. And then we got to get our micro and our macro in alignment with one another. We've got to know who we really are, and we've got to know that it is not an us versus them situation, no matter how funny looking at it that way can be. The truth of the matter is that we need to solve our president's negative emotion issues. Um, well, actually, we don't have to go forth and change anybody else. What we really have to do is stay in alignment ourselves. And what does that mean? It means that you are in good humor. You are never in alignment in a bad humor. When you're in a bad humor, you are, by definition, you're out of alignment. And a lot of people do a lot of their thinking in bad humor and a lot of their assessment of the world. They do it from a thinking place of bad humor. And they are not actually accurately assessing the whole picture when they do that. Now, it's easy to look out on a scene of war and disruption and get pessimistic about it. I'll grant you that. But when one understands the fundamentals of organization and what is at the center of all organizational spin, and when one understands that spin is actually at the center of all organization, including all celestial organization, there isn't anything being organized out there in outer space that you could point to that is not spinning. Everything's spinning. Now, you can get to the surface of that big, huge old planet, and now when you look around from that frame, well, it doesn't look like it's spinning from here. But when you step out, you go, well, I am spinning. I'm absolutely spinning. I'm at the center of a huge mass of organizational spin here. I am. And you are spinning with the whole field on the one hand, and you can't help that. But you also absolutely control your own point of spin. You have free agency. You can link with your inner being and in good humor address the situation of the world, the exercise and adventure of the world, and spin your life the way you want. Spin your story the way you want. That's what you can do. Or you can just you can stay unconscious and let it beat you up Play it by default in absolute ignorance of your actual nature and see the universe beat the shit out of you. My suggestion is start small. Start small with your most private and intimate relationships. Try letting down your guard, letting down your arms, and allowing love to flow easily. Quit resisting everyone from a material standpoint. Become unconditional in any place that you can feel safe to do so. And then ponder the implications that ripple out to you from there. That's just a little exercise. You could start with that. I have way more to go with this as we are going to discuss day after day. Who am I? Who am I? And what do we need to do as humanity to figure out this freaking pickle that we're in? Now, I know that in some ways I sound simplistic and perhaps naive. I promise you, I know what a big ask I am asking. I know I'm not I'm not delusional. This is just how it works. This is the fundamentals of organizational spin. And we're going to get into, in later days, we'll talk more. I didn't talk about it at all today. How the very act of understanding source energy and being able to plug our technologies directly into the source of all energy, which is everywhere, which means you don't have to, you don't have to have a power plant that then transforms the different frequencies and chokes it down for individual use. You don't have to wire homes. You don't have to, um, you don't have, the grid is no longer vulnerable to sabotage. You don't have centralized power at the center of that, the king of the world over there, Mr. Trump, saying what gets drilled and what that, or you don't have that kind of centralized power because power will be in the hands of everyone. Everyone. Now, right now, while we're still a little bit unconscious and there are still unconscious beings walking this planet who would grab clean, free, unlimited energy and turn it on their neighbors and blow them away. That's why it's a little slow in coming because the rise in consciousness has to coincide with the rise in energy technology. Or the first thing that'll happen when that energy technology lands is somebody's going to blow the rest of us up. So there's a reason how come all things work out the way that they do, and things really are working out for us. Things are always working out for us. Things are always working out for us to the long term. To the long term, they really are. And what you can do, you can get involved in the drama of the moment if you want to. It's part of the process. Jump in there, do a little step one, and then know that Source has done step two, and then joyfully and playfully turn to step three and allow good things. Be part of the step three of all of kind. I think that's where I'm going to leave it today. I got to go take a shower. I got a big date, a tea time date this morning. I'm very excited. It's going to be fun. I get to dress up pretty and spend a couple of hours with somebody I really like. And so I'm going to leave it at that for now. And tomorrow, maybe I'll be back. Maybe I won't. Don't have any idea. It all depends. I'm here when the spirit moves me, and I'm not here when the spirit moves me to do something else. So maybe I'll see you again. I love you. And until next time, you know the line. As always, may the source be with you.